All right, here we go. Sarah here. Welcome back to another episode of Your Fucking Welcome. Today, I wanted to tackle a topic that feels like all the rage, and that is the concept of quantum leaping. Now, if you've been, especially in the coaching space, you've heard this term a million times before, and I feel like it kind of like goes through waves where it's one of those things where like everybody's talking about it, and then it kind of like comes back in full force. And so I wanted to Google it actually and kind of read you the actual definition. And according to Google, Oxford, dictionary, a quantum leap is a huge, often sudden increase or advance in something. And I really think when it comes to all of our lives and all of our businesses, this is what we're always kind of intentionally or unintentionally striving towards, right? We want the results that we want, and we want them right now. We want a big increase in money. We want a big decrease on the scale. We want the love of our lives tomorrow, right? We want that thing that we want, and we want it now, right? And of course, that's something that eludes all of us in life and especially in business. And I know that when it comes to, the energetic side of things, as you know, I am somebody who is definitely more of a practical human being, right? I am somebody who really thinks in logic, and I personally have always had a really hard time understanding energetic principles when they've been explained to me, if I can't understand how they actually translate to the practical, right? If I can't explain in a tangible way how this actually works, it's hard for me to wrap my brain or my belief or my energy behind it from an energetic perspective. But it's funny because as I listen to other trainings and podcasts about like this concept, and again, especially when people are talking about it energetically, it's just funny for me to recognize the way in which I'm like, oh, I get it now. I didn't get it before. I was trying to force myself to get it before, but I get it now. And I like laugh as I listen to some things, because if somebody else in like my life was listening to a training that I'm listening to, they'd be like, what the fuck is this person talking about? Like, this sounds like nonsense. This sounds ridiculous. And I get that. And I'm like, no, but like now that I get it, I really, really, really get it. And so I say all of that because I wanted to take a stab at really sharing with you what I've come to understand about quantum leaps, but more than that, what I've come to understand about them, and hopefully applied and explained to you in a practical way, in case you are like me, where you can't like really, again, wrap your brain or belief behind being able to do this for yourself in any area of your life, because again, it feels so out there. It feels so disconnected. It feels so like intangible. And again, I wanted to break it down, hopefully in a practical way for you, and some of the ways that, again, I've been applied to my life, my business, and the ways that I have experienced it. So the first thing that I want to say is that if you are gearing up to attempt a quantum leap, and again, that is in any area of your life, I tend to reflect on, money or weight or, dating and love when it comes to these kinds of things. So obviously it can, apply to so many different other angles. But if we're talking about it, let's say, for example, when it comes to money, when it comes to your business, right? Let's use this example to start off with. The first tip that I want to give you here is I really, really, really want you to remember and embrace how you've made big jumps or big leaps in the past, and then anchor into that power and take action accordingly. So what I mean by this is that what I find so often, I've said this many times, but what I find so often is that I'll have a client, or me myself, I've done it a million times as well. I'll be sitting there, having a huge jump in income, right? Let's say I look back on 2017. That was just, such a big jump that I talk about so often. I went from $8,000 a month to $45,000 a month in a 30-day period, right? And then I can sit here wanting to go to a bigger number now. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I do it? And I start reaching for shiny objects. I start kind of allowing myself to forget how powerful I am. And I have found over and over and over again, the most powerful thing that I can do for myself is to remember that the answer is not outside of me necessarily. And that doesn't mean that I don't ever hire a coach. That doesn't mean that I ever don't try a new strategy. But I have to remember that I've done it before. And so I am already powerful enough to do it again. I already have the know-how. I already have the knowledge. I've already taken the steps to be able to create it for myself. And B, I want to remind myself in that moment that you've done this before, right? Again, we are chasing a new number. It's so easy for us to like kind of, again, go into this place of like, could I really do it? Like that number's so outside of me. I really want it so bad. It's so far away. And you not taking the moment to remind yourself that you've already done this shit, right? Like you've already been there. You've been in this place. You've accomplished this type of jump before. It allows you to embrace that like, oh, it's actually not that hard. Because again, I think I said this a couple episodes ago, but it's like, if you are sitting there and you're wanting to go from like 20K months to 50K months, it feels so far away from you. Whereas you've jumped from $0 months to 20K months. And so for you to not take the moment to really sit with and remember how you got there, I think you're doing yourself a massive disservice, right? Because for so many of us, obviously we experience and do new things as we grow and just as time evolves. While at the same time, I think that our ways of accomplishing and our ways of achieving goals, it remains the same, right? Like I know in my experience that every single time I have a plan, right, and then I work that plan, that's when I make the most progress versus as an example, like there have been times when I've tried to do things a little bit more intuitively, or I kind of try to sit there and be like, oh, I'll do whatever I want, whenever I want. That's when I go off the rails. And that's where I feel like I'm really floating and I feel really out of control. And I wind up creating a lot more drama and chaos for myself. Every single time I have had a quantum leap in money or in any area of my life, I've really been intentional about this is the plan and I'm going to work the plan. I'm going to make it a simple plan and I'm going to work it. And so maybe it's different for you. Maybe you're the opposite. Maybe you're a non-planner. But the point here is I want you to embrace how you've done things well in the past. And instead of acting as though the method or the strategy or the way in which to get the results that you want is outside of you, or it's something you don't know, or it's something you have to learn, or it's something you have to find out, somebody else has the secret. I want you to really, again, embrace how you operate best and anchor into that. And again, take action accordingly, right? And so the second part of this, right, is I want you to get better at only purposefully planning. And so here's the thing. When a lot of people talk about, again, quantum leaps or just in general, like I really think that like if I were to sum up the answer to life in one word, it would be presence. Because if we simply committed to being more present in any given moment, everything would change. Everything would be better. We'd figure out, again, how we want to feel, and we'd be, again, embracing a conversation for what it is instead of being in our heads, so on and so forth. I could go on and on about presence forever. But my point is that when I think about presence, and when I used to hear people talk about it that way, I'm like, well, then how do I plan for the future? And I kind of like didn't understand, well, then where does planning come in? Do I just not plan? That doesn't make sense. And I think one of the things that I've really, really, really realized is that there's such a big difference. Please hear me, because I think this can be such a nuanced point, but I really want you to hear me when I say this. There is such a big difference between you sitting there bullshitting yourself and planning, right? And this is the thing that I'm going to do. And this is the idea that I have. And this is how this is going to look moving forward. And don't get me wrong, a good old no pressure brainstorm session is a great thing from time to time. But I think we've all been in that place where we sit there and we write up the plan in the notebook, or we, buy the new planner to bullshit ourselves and saying that we're going to plan this, that, the other thing. And we're making plans for the future that just wind up taking up our energy and our brain power. And then we don't actually put those things into action. And so that is different than you sitting there putting aside time, for example, and you're spending an hour and I'm planning out my next month or my next launch, but it's this energy of everything that I'm doing in this moment, everything that I'm putting onto paper or typing up, whatever, everything that is being done in this moment to plan, I'm doing it in the present, right? I'm present with my plan planning. It's not romanticizing the future. I'm putting down plans that are done and final and like are actually going to happen. It's this decision-based planning versus planning from this, again, romantic place that, oh, on Monday, this is the person that I'm going to be, and I'm going to have no problems, and this is how I'm going to eat perfectly, and this is how I'm going to do this, and this is how I'm going to make $1 million. When in reality, in the present, you're not doing anything, or you haven't been doing anything, and you're struggling to get yourself moving in the direction you want to move in. Again, planning and coming from this place of like romanticizing who you're going to be, and then it not actually amounting to anything, or you don't actually take action on those things. That's very different than you sitting down and again planning for the future and creating a concrete plan intentionally, and again from this place of deciding, and you know that the things that you're working on are actually going to be implemented, right? And so I want to make sure that you're only, again, spending your energy and your brain power planning, but when it's purposeful, right? Only when it's purposeful, so that you're actually, again, not wasting so much time and energy, and there's momentum behind the thing that you're doing, and you're going to actually implement that thing. So similarly, number 3 is that I want to encourage you as much as possible to do something right now. Do something right now. And so what I mean by this is, and I'm guilty of this too, I want you to know that, but so often we can sit there and we can say, okay, I want to sell this many one-on-one coaching packages, or I want to, do this workout routine, whatever it is, right? And again, I'm going to start on Monday. And why would you tell yourself you're going to start on Monday, or you're going to start next month, or you're going to start in 2022, but then you're not doing anything in this moment? I feel like the way that it feels for me internally, and I don't even like saying this, but this is the truth. And I feel like if I say it, hopefully it resonates with some of you. There's this soothing that happens. There's this calming down that happens when I say, okay, I screwed this up, or I'm not comfortable with where I am right now, but I don't want to actually do this thing in the moment. But on Monday, or again, like I said, in the future, this is when I'm going to start doing this thing. There's something calming and, again, soothing about that. It takes away the guilt, because you can kind of put faith in this new plan, while at the same time, if you want to be the person that works out every day, if you want to be the person who shows up in your business every single day, if you want to be the person who sells one-on-one coaching with ease, a million different examples I could use here, why wouldn't you do it right now? Why wouldn't you take action in that direction right now? Or again, maybe say, okay, in an hour, I don't know, I just ate, and so in an hour, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, right? If you are not willing to grab it now, in so many situations, you're probably kidding yourself, right? You're probably kidding yourself into, again, you becoming somebody else. I want you to embrace that, like, in the moment, this present moment, you have the power to start moving in the direction of who you want to be and the results that you ultimately want to have. And so I want you to give yourself that, right? Instead of romanticizing the future, because what happens is, my experience, right? If we are talking about, let's go back to that example of 2017, when I went from an 8K month to 45K month and had a $500,000 year. The thing is, I had planned in my head for months at that point, I'm going to start going live every day. I'm going to start going live every day. I'm going to start going live every day. And I just kept not doing it. And when did I get results? When I started doing it. Shocking, I know. And back then, at that point, I want you to understand that I had no fucking idea what it was all going to look like. I wasn't sitting there in that moment being like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go live every 30 days, and then I'm going to talk about how I went live every 30 days, and I'm going to have a 500K year, and I'm going to create the 500K sales system, and I'm going to create a program called Show Up and Blow Up that's all about showing up for 30 days. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know what the future was going to hold. I didn't know in that moment, like in this concrete way, what I was about to create. I had no idea, but I just knew that it was time to start being who I wanted to be and taking action accordingly, and in a messy way a lot of times. And every single time I have had the experience of a quantum leap, it has come from messy action where I didn't know where it was going to lead to. I just started moving and I just started doing. And I want you to embrace how different the feeling is versus of like, if we look at if we compare it to, and again, it's the same thing, but energetically it feels very different to me. If we are looking at, okay, showing up every single day for 30 days and hustling your ass off and making all the posts and doing all these things from this place of force, right? Versus I'm going to throw all of the fear out the window. I am going to stop worrying about how it may or may not look, how it may or may not work out. And I'm just going to start moving and doing the things. And I'm going to trust that the momentum builds in the right direction. The other example I want to use of this is, and this was a long time ago, but like 10 years or so ago, I really, really, really got into like the gym. I was going to spin class nonstop. I would like run in the morning and I would go to body pump at night. Like I was in the best shape of my life about 10 years ago. And I was reflecting on that recently in the sense that I can so often get in my head in terms of the plan now when it comes to like working out and what should I do? And should I do this thing first or that thing first? Or should I go to the gym or should I do the Peloton? Like stupid fucking things that go on in my brain in terms of like, what's the perfect way to start? And I was just reflecting on the fact that like, I did not obsess over the perfect plan back then. I just started going to the fucking gym. I just started doing the things. I didn't worry about the number of reps. I didn't worry about if it was imperfect, or maybe I did in that moment, right? But I just took the action. I created the momentum and I lost weight and I got in better shape more quickly than again I ever did previously. And it's so obvious to say because I took action, but I want to give you that kind of like reframe and way of thinking about it, hopefully in just a different capacity, in the sense that like, it's not about the forcing of the action. It's just about committing to what you want and being who you want to be and taking the action and allowing it to be a little bit messy, removing the fear around it being perfect. If you were to, as an example, start podcasting or start going live every single day when you haven't been previously, some of them aren't going to be great. Some of them aren't going to be perfect, but I can fucking promise you that in 30 days, you will be in a better situation than you were if you were still thinking about doing it or if you were still just not doing it at all, right? Momentum is momentum. Momentum is such a beautiful thing, and momentum cannot be created at all unless you start moving now. So many people want to be at 100 when they're at 1, and they don't understand that every single day the bubbles, right, boiling on the pot, like when you're boiling that water, when the water is heating up, it's not going to boil right away, but the heat goes up, and eventually you have it at a boil. And it's the same kind of thing, 1 to 100. People want to be at the boil right away. People want to be at 100 right away, and they don't understand, or they can forget. And not that, again, like they don't understand, like not that I don't understand. It's that we're so emotionally tied to the end goal that sometimes we can't see it clearly. But I want you to, again, embrace what I'm saying here, that it's not about, again, the end game result as much as it is about trusting yourself to take the action right now, every single day, from this inspired, excited place, and allowing it to be messy and allowing yourself to detach from how it might go wrong. Because when you give yourself that gift, again, momentum is created, and before you know it, you're at a place where you didn't even realize that you could be, and you wouldn't have been there if you were still in planning or over analyzing mode. Okay. And then the final thing that I want to say, and again, this might not sound super practical, but it really is that I want you to focus on how you want to feel and then act, okay? Because again, if we're talking about, and I'm saying this from the perspective of, I'm sure you're like me, you've listened to lots of different coaches and lots of different trainings. And again, when these spiritual or energetic principles are often explained, for me personally, it has been very difficult for me to understand how that plays out practically. Now I get it, but I didn't get it for a long time. And so if we're talking about, vibrating to a new number, if you're saying like, again, vibrate to that 200K month, and how would that person feel and feel that way? You're like, okay, I'll feel that way, but like, what's going to happen now? What do I actually do? And so I want to use the example of, again, weight loss, because not that I'm the expert on it, while at the same time I feel like I am, just in all the efforts over the years, right? Like it's something that has been at the forefront of my mind. But even this year, I've prioritized how I want to feel over the number on the scale. I was having a conversation with a friend not that long ago, and she is trying to lose weight. and she was feeling good, eating well, working out more. She was feeling good in her skin. And then she allowed herself to get on the scale. The scale wasn't as low as she would have ideally liked it to be. And then all of a sudden she felt like shit and went off the rails and stopped doing the things that she was doing. And I was like, but like, what if the priority was just feeling good? Because recognize how when you were focused on feeling good, you took the action. If you are beating yourself up, if you're berating yourself, if you are making yourself miserable for how you look or for the number on the scale, it becomes really difficult to motivate yourself to actually take action. Whereas if you are more focused and you are prioritizing how you want to feel in your skin and allowing yourself to actually feel good, the feel good version of you actually does the things, right? And so it's the same thing, of course, with business. If you are sitting there being like, I need to make this amount of money, I have to make this amount of money, I'm farther behind than I should be, I should have done this by now, so on and so forth, and it's coming from this needy or like forced or negative place, it becomes really difficult for you to take actions in this flow-based good energy, essentially, right? This energy that people want to be around. Whereas if you were like, I want to feel that I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about, I know that people need to hear me, I know that I need to inspire people, I know that people need to be listening to me because I know how to help them in this, that way, right? I know that, and I want to feel like the leader that I know I truly am. When you allow yourself to prioritize that, again, you wind up being in a better position to take the actions that you know to take, but it's coming from a different energy. It feels less forced and it actually feels good. You're doing a live video because you want to do a live video and you have something on your heart and soul that you want to share and say, versus because you feel like you have to in order to get the sales. It's a totally different energy. And again, all of this combined, in my experience, when you simply take the massive action from an inspired place and from a place of trusting where you are in this moment versus where you want to be in the future, you get to where you want to be in the future, right? So much more easily because you are not coming from this place of force or this place of pushing. There's not that resistance. You take the resistance away. It just allows you to make it feel a lot more enjoyable. And again, when you're doing the things in an enjoyable way day after day, you get to where you want to be so much sooner. And I want so many more of us to embrace that. And it's interesting because on one hand, I know how hard so much of this is. But when I think about it and I remember and I reflect on everything that I just said, it's so fucking easy, guys. It's so fucking easy. And I want you to feel that way, right? I really, truly want you to feel that and believe that that is possible for you, because the way in which we complicate it, and again, by feeling like everything's outside of ourselves or, being in a race to get to this result, we make it so much harder and more complicated in that way. Instead of embracing how simple it gets to be when we allow ourselves, again, to be in the present moment, feel how we want to feel, know that we have everything inside of ourselves to do the thing that we want to do because we've already done it in the past in other ways, right? And then take massive action accordingly. And again, action not from a forced or place of resistance, from a place of inspiration and a place of desire and a place of truly, again, being who you want to be and being who you want to be now versus someday in the imaginary future where everything's going to be picture perfect, because that day will never come anyway. And I really, 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 truly believe that if you embrace those points and do the things and take the actions in that way, you can experience a massive jump in any area of your life so much more easily than you realize right now, and so much more easily than most people realize. And I want you to, again, trust that. And of course, do that. Okay? I'll talk to you next episode. Bye.